This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
Hey, it is 10:08 at WPSL 1590, the talk of the Treasure Coast. And you're on Dr. Ask the Rabbi show.
And this is Rabbi Shafir Loeb of Congregation Eitz Chayim, your Jewish home on the Treasure Coast. And for those who are following on, yes, whatever this is. What can I say? So this is Ask a Rabbi. And if you'd like to ask this rabbi a question when she gets her act together, that number is 772-340-1590. So please do feel free to join me there, and we're going to go live. Yay. Yay, technology.
The magic of Facebook.
You know, I love when it works. It's thinking about it.
Oh, yes. Well, the magic of Mr. Zuckerberg.
You know, it's wonderful when it works.
The operative words there, when it works.
Yeah, it always is.
Well, and you know, we've got a little dilemma. You know, we've been streaming for, I don't know how many years, 10, maybe 12. And the streaming company had server problems.
Woo.
They've been on the same server for a million years, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, they changed things around. Well, what they did, they lost about 300 of us, and so they're working on it, folks, in Illinois. We'll be back on TuneIn and Alexa soon. So
stuff happens.
Oh yeah. Well, and you can imagine the sensitivity of. All these crazy, I don't understand any of it, but IP addresses and all this stuff. And, you're one digit off and forget about it.
Then, the world does. The computer is very literate. I've always said that what it needs is a what I meant button. Right?
Yes,
so it could read your mind and then, put in what you really meant instead of what you typed.
Yeah.
Or said or, any of those things.
Well, and I have to let you know that the AI version of talk radio made its debut in Portland, Oregon this past weekend.
And did it talk to people?
It
tried.
It wasn't taking calls.
Oh. Okay, well, then, I'm not quite sure how that works for talk radio, because I think that part of talking is talking.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so literal.
Anyway, so that'll sort it.
So AI is here, and
it is.
And it's going to get smarter and better, but it is. I really don't think that it will ever have the innate creativity that humans have. It's a really good. So I'll tell you. If I'm having trouble thinking of where, I think it's going to help with writer's block. That's where I'm going with this. Because if you ask it, what should I write about bicycles? It's going to give you some suggestions, and you're either going to say yes or no, but it'll start the spark. And then what you know that it doesn't is what's going to matter. And I think the people who are afraid, the wordsmiths that are afraid that AI will replace them, are either not paying attention to what AI is and really can or cannot do, and don't understand the gift of their gift.
Well, one of the main issues of the Writers Guild strike in the television industry is AI, aside from the streaming royalties and stuff like that. But, I mean, but AI is is one of the main topics of so far the non-discussion with management.
Well, and the fear that they're going to be replaced by a bunch of AI. And
Yeah.
and the reality is that AI cannot come up with the Lucy Show. AI cannot come up with Steinfeld.
Yeah.
AI cannot come up with the Dick Van Dyke Show. And I know I'm quoting old ones, but it's just not going to have that. It's going to regurgitate what's out there. It doesn't create new.
And as Carol Burnett said a million times, the byplay with Harvey Korman and Conway, those nuts all together, and script is right out the window, and you don't know where it's going to go. Yeah, you're right.
And I will admit that any script that you hand those two would have turned out hysterically funny in front of the camera, but it would not have been what AI had written.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And maybe it gets back to a lot of things, part of which is imposter syndrome, people who are afraid they have a job that they really don't have the skill set to handle. And I think that artists and creative people very often fall into that, well, I'm not really they either are super over the top, think they have everything to give, or they don't recognize their gifts.
Mm-hmm.
There doesn't seem to be a lot of folks in the middle who say, yeah, I'm really very creative and I've got something to give. I think that group is far too small. And I think that we all have gifts to give. We all have gifts. We all have different ways of looking at it. There is not just one or two ways to look at any problem. And, it's those little sparks of creativity. And maybe you feel they come too seldom for you. And if that's the case, then the question becomes, what can you do to encourage your brain to do more of it? Because that's a different answer. And AI can be the spark, but it's not going to be the answer.
Interesting. Okay.
So,
Yeah, I never even thought of like a spark to get things started.
Well, one of the things that I do when I assign papers, I assign a wide variety. And I've had students come to me and say, well, just tell me what you want me to write about. And I'm like, no, that's not the point of it. Because if I tell you what to write about, then I'm going to get 10 of the same papers. And the odds of you folks plagiarizing without intending to is much higher.
Yes.
The key is that you have very, very different papers that aren't like the other things that are out there.
Were you looking over my shoulder when I was looking at the person next to me?
That's just outright cheating.
Oh, yeah. So true. Oh, my.
Yes. And that's going to happen, right? Kids are going to cheat for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, I've been around a few years.
And the part that I really get a kick out of is that they think that teachers don't know. Teachers very clearly know, and they're just going to get harder and harder. The assignments are going to get more and more challenging in some ways. So one of the things that I know a number of people are looking at doing is saying to the student, you can come in, show me your outline, but you'll write the essay in class.
Ooh. Well, yeah.
Come in with your references.
Sure.
Show me your reference page. Show me your outline, and now write the essay.
Ooh. Okay. Uh-huh. And how long a class period is this?
You can do short ones. They don't have to be long. It can be long.
I like that.
I
like that.
That's a way of doing it, and I'm looking at doing some of that this term.
That's very cool. Oh, yeah. That would be really intriguing. It really would. Yeah. Huh. Okay.
Thank you for that.
Interesting.
So, yeah, the key is to, well, yeah. Then you have to lock their You have to lock their computer so they can't go and visit other screens. But you can do that today. There's something called Respondus Lockdown on Blackboard. Yeah, it doesn't let them go to other websites.
Oh, that's right. You've got the special Blackboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, I mean, in different schools use different. They're called learning management systems, LMS, and they're different platforms. So they're different bits of software, but they all do basically the same thing.
Yeah.
It's different places for you to turn your work in, different places to read the assignment, and different things are linked depending on who, what, where, and some things are more open and some things are less. So it's what it is. You work within it, and you work with students within it.
See, I love that idea.
Yeah,
show me your references and then start writing. Yeah.
Yeah, show me your references, show me your outline, and you've got an hour or two or whatever. But because you should be able to generate. If you've got the outline, you should be able to generate an essay, 1 or 2 page essay in an hour. It's just, and I think there's inherent inside that another set of skills that are important. And I'm gonna probably do at least one assignment that way this coming term.
That is so cool. Yeah, I like it.
It gets away from some of the stuff.
Will this be at IRC or Kaiser?
IRC at Kaiser, I don't have the large classes where it's as big a concern. And students do work in class on things, and I look over their shoulder so I can see what they're doing. And you might say, well, they can flick back and forth. Yeah, they can, but when you've only got 2 to 4 students, it's not that easy to hide from the teacher.
Yeah. It was never that easy for me to hide from the teacher.
No, and the other part is students don't realize that we talk to the students. We know how they speak, and you don't write all that differently from how you speak.
Mm-hmm.
You might write more formally, and I certainly do when I'm doing an academic piece. I don't talk with the same. I don't use don't when I write academically, for example, because contractions are not allowed in academic writing. That doesn't mean they're not in textbooks, and that's an important point to tell students. Yes, we allow you to use your textbook in class because you have to, but it's not an academic source. So usually it's that plus one other in order to force you to actually look at some academic writing.
So are there real textbooks still?
There are real textbooks, and people can get them in print, although some students prefer to get them in an ebook, and I'm not going to make noise.
Okay, so if you're doing the Blackboard thing and you want to refer back to your textbook, which is an ebook, can you do that?
Typically, yes. It depends on how it's set up, whether or not that's allowed. And some people have it on their phones. And
oh, sure. I mean, naturally.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
And the key is that when you're going to do something like that, it's either no book, you have your notes and your references so that you're not copying. Because that's another piece that's worth mentioning. That if you don't want to plagiarize, here's the key, folks. Read it 2-3 times, what you want to talk about. Maybe jot down a few words, not whole sentences, but a few key words. Put it away and then write. The odds of you coming up with the exact phrases in the book are very slim. Because you're going to integrate, you're going to understand it and then put it back in your own words. So that's one of the ways to get away from plagiarizing, is to just you have to take it in and put it back out instead of just copying it. And the other big challenge on those lines actually is the AI that's inside Word, inside we encourage students to use Grammarly so that they learn better grammar, because Grammarly improves.
Grammarly?
Yeah, it's one of the kind of AIs that's out there. In fact, they have AI within them. And it will. So if it sees a misspelling, it'll correct it. Now Word will do some of that as well. So Grammarly and Word sometimes have a fight where they both tell you that you're wrong. It's wonderful.
So you're fighting with autocorrect?
You're fighting with autocorrect. Well, it'll tell you punctuation errors and things like that, with the idea that over time you make fewer and fewer errors.
Uh-huh. In theory.
I said in theory.
Yes.
And the key is whether you're just doing it automatically, hoping to improve and not have the grammar ding on your paper. The other reality is that you can tell when a student really knows the subject, has done the research, and when they haven't.
You mean you have to read past page 1?
You have to read past page 1. I'm so sorry. Yes, Greg. You do have to read past page 1, and reading is important. One of the interesting things, I was thinking about this the other day, people were saying to me, how can I manage to do as much as I do? And one of the big keys, if I really look at it, is my ability to speed read.
Mm-hmm.
I took way back in 900 years ago when I was 3 a speed reading course, and I don't think those are offered anymore.
I remember those. Yeah.
And Evelyn Wood, of course, comes to mind, but there are others as well.
Yeah.
So there are a number of different possibilities. And being able to speed read and gain what I need from the text quickly is one of my really great lucky skills. I'm lucky to have that. Lucky, yes and no. I mean, it was my mother actually that encouraged me to do it, and I have to thank her for that. It was probably one of the best things that I, along the way, picked up as a skill. Along the way, because of being my father's daughter, I unexpectedly learned to be able to read upside down and sideways. And that sounds kind of funny, but
wait a minute, back up. What?
Well, it happened because very often he would work with a student on a Saturday afternoon, and there wasn't a whole lot for me to do when I was little, so I'd often sit at the table while he was working with a student. But he and the student had the book, and I didn't. And so I would hear it, and I would see the student going down the page, and somewhere along the line it clicked. So it didn't matter where I was sitting on the table. I learned to follow.
Wow.
And I know that I've had fun with that with people. I can remember one time in Tucson, we had joined forces. The smaller congregations used to get together for holidays just to have more mass and
makes sense.
More numbers. And I can remember one time at Purim, I have to realize that, I carry a tune in a bucket if I'm lucky. And so my singing isn't always good. But there was one Purim where I and the other rabbi from this other congregation were across a table reading. And I had started, and then he read the second part, and they had flipped the people. There were people there who were flipping the scroll, and that just was cumbersome to do. And so I just grabbed the pointer and went right from upside down and continued singing it, and the looks were rather impressive. And I didn't do it so much to show off as just to make it faster.
Uh-huh, sure.
But we had great fun with that.
Yeah.
And I continued reading my half upside down because it didn't faze me. So
wow.
Yeah, it's one of the weird things in my brain. So when they have one of those, can you read this? I can almost always read them.
That's wild. Huh.
I'm not quite as good with mirror image, but I'm really good no matter what the angle is. So it's not something I practice that much, so eventually it'll fall off, but every once in a while it comes in handy.
That sounds great. Wow. But Yeah.
It's just it's from
almost
practice.
like osmosis when you're a little
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah, when you're a little kid, the pathways get built and they're just there. It's not like I use them a lot. Now, I will share one funny thing. Because I grew up learning to talk and to read and write in 3 languages, yes, occasionally I'd put pieces in when there wasn't the right word in whichever language I'd borrow from one of the others. But the biggest problem that I had was that I had to consciously think about which way do English and German write and which way does Hebrew write. And sometimes, when I was very little, I would get them backwards. So I would, write whatever the wrong direction.
Whoa, gosh.
And
but you were so fortunate to have those languages. I mean,
I think so. Yeah.
You just think there's this one player who got drafted last night, speaks 7 languages.
Yeah.
And he's from Europe, and they seem to, the kids coming over from Europe, all speak like 3 or 4.
Well, that's because most of Europe fits inside Texas.
Well, and you're correct. Yeah.
Partially because Texas is so huge. It's just incredibly big.
Yes. Yes, it is.
And has many, many different cultures and ecosystems, and it's huge. And Europe, postage stamps, Luxembourg, you drive across it in an hour or 2.
It's kind of like New England in a way.
Yeah,
where
very,
the
very.
states are so small.
Yeah, very dense, and you flip languages and dialects very quickly. I know when I was talking with somebody and wanted to learn Luxembourgish, and I was asking who could be a good tutor for me to somebody, and I had suggested that so-and-so was willing to work with me, and I was told, oh, no, he has the wrong dialect. You don't want to, yeah.
Isn't that pretty much German, though?
It's German and French intertwined.
Spanglish.
There is some of that, and the language leans toward whichever country Luxembourg has the best relationship with in the moment. You have to understand that Luxembourg, being between France and Germany and having a waterway, very often faced very hostile things. And, French conquerors burned this and German conquerors burned that. And it's whoever was nicest to them most recently. So, and you also hear a big difference between Eastern Luxembourgish, close to Germany, and Western Luxembourgish, close to France, rather.
Wow.
And the kids there do grade school, at least they did. I'm not up to speed on what they do now. But when I was there for Goodyear, the up to 8th grade was in German and high school was in French.
Oh, nice.
So that the kids became very proficient in both languages. And of course then you've got the Belgian influence to the north, but Luxembourg is this little tiny postage stamp between all of these big powers, but it's its own flavor, and as I said, it's different from Echternach to Vianden to all the different places inside the country, and whatever they touch next to. So when I heard a group of school children, I could tell the difference, even just in the short time I was there. I could tell the difference of where the kids were from by how the teacher would talk to them, because I was starting to pick up. Right, so close to France, they say merci, please.
Sure.
And toward, as you get closer to the middle, you get Vanish Gelef, which is Luxembourgish for please, but that's kind of like a s'il vous plaît in German.
Okay.
Right. So, s'il vous plaît, merci, or bitte, danke, as you get closer. And then in between, it's this interesting blend.
Wow.
It's not hard to figure out. And if you say, well, how could they have so different in such a tiny geographic area? part of it's because you have to go way down into the valleys and way up into the mountains.
Yes.
So it might only be a frog jump away, but it's going to take you a long trek to get from one to the other, particularly until there are cars. Cars have always made a huge difference. People who are pre-car, and we're losing those folks. Right? Those are dying off. Everybody knows a car now. It's just like it's a riot in the airplanes, or they make a joke out of it. Right? If you were born before the 1950s and have never been in a car, then this is how you use a seatbelt. Because that rule of showing how to use the seatbelt was done at a time when people didn't always get into cars and put on seatbelts. Not all cars had seatbelts.
That's right.
There was a time, and now try getting into a car without one. Not going to find it. So things change. It's just like the cell phones. I was having most of my Kaiser students are a little bit older than most of my students at IRSC. I've got both, but the ones at Kaiser were actually talking about before cell phones, what it was like to grow up as a little kid and actually go outside and play because you didn't have a tablet.
Yeah.
And how different that was. And we're seeing that effect big time.
I got to ask your scientific brain.
Uh-oh.
Would you have gone on that capsule underwater? I was kidding with Carol. I would have.
Yeah.
I am just fascinated
and I
with
think
stuff like
a number of people have, right? This is not certainly not its maiden voyage.
Right.
And my husband's comment was, I wonder how often they inspect it.
Well, that's what some of the criticism is now. Was it fatigue?
And those are,
I can't even comprehend the water pressure.
It's got to be really huge. And people do get careless. I'm thinking of things like flying, right? You're supposed to pre-flight the plane before every flight. And certainly for a commercial airline, they walk around, but how casual does somebody get after a while?
Say it's snowing or some other foul
you check
weather.
it. You actually check it better when it's snowing.
Do you? Okay, well,
because
that's good.
Then you're looking to see if ice is forming anywhere and if you need to be de-iced and all of those things.
Okay.
So I think that in bad weather, they actually get checked better than they do when the weather's fine. When the weather's fine, you might also be thinking about fishing or something else.
Or you're in San Diego where it's 72 degrees all the time.
Oh, that's not a bad gig. That's not a bad gig.
7 good years there. Yep.
Yeah, and San Diego is a unique place on the planet.
Oh, so beautiful.
I can remember when we lived in California and the air conditioning went out and it was going to be a while until they could fix it. And my parents said, San Diego. And that's where we went for a short term.
I don't remember us even having air conditioning.
You probably don't need it at 72.
And no, I know we didn't in our first apartment there, and I don't think we had it in our house either.
You don't need
You
it.
just open the windows.
Yeah, just let the breeze come through.
Yeah.
The only time it's bad is on those few occasions when it's actually precipitating.
Or
it's raining.
Or Indian summer.
Yeah.
Which lasted 2 weeks or something, so it wasn't bad.
So you go to the mall or the library.
Yeah.
Places that are air conditioned.
Library, I've heard of those.
You've heard of those things, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it was so funny. We had at our real estate show yesterday 2 people who were at Scripps newspapers, and was laughing. Yeah, I think I saw a newspaper in a museum. It's amazing. They were both talking about how much technology changed in the years that they were there, and they knew 10 years before.
Yeah, they knew
it
decades before that the signs were there.
It was going
absolutely.
down. Yeah.
And I can remember standing there as a young child watching those the newspaper presses that took the whole room because it printed each page, assembled it, folded it, and at the end you got this nice little packet that got put with its little friends and off it went.
They had when Scripps built that building in St. Lucie West, it was for this unbelievable German press. They had to shut down I-95
To bring it in. Yeah.
To bring it in, and spectacular. And but it was like a mountain inside there.
Huge.
And it was absolutely phenomenal to watch.
Oh, it was fascinating. I watched. I liked to stand near one of the plate stations and watch the ink go onto the plates and transfer onto the paper, and the paper to go up into the heavens of the press.
Yeah.
And then see the same page coming back down, getting put with its friends, getting compiled, and it had to dry in that time. Otherwise, you'd have inked the page next to you. And so that really was an amazing amount of technology. Of course, it didn't start that way. And it was a big change for my parents' newspaper when it went over to newsprint as opposed to the earlier not mimeograph. I think when they started, they may have been mimeograph or Spirit Masters.
The
Yeah.
smell.
And then they went to a small offset press.
Yeah.
That we made the plates and put them on, and that did, and then we had to assemble it because they were just basically tabloid size sheets, and we just, it was physically assembled, and I was the collator. I remember that well.
So is that a weekly?
That was a weekly.
Yeah.
And when at some point my parents realized it was just easier to take the layup and go to the local newspaper and have them print it in newspaper form as soon as we got to a certain size, and then they eventually sold it. So it may still be, maybe online now. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, that's amazing.
And it was great, though. We would take it, as those who are in the print world know, it was put to bed on. Everything was gathered and laid out Monday and Tuesday. It went to bed Tuesday night, and we picked it up Thursday morning and distributed it. So it was 2 trips to the newspaper. And that's not unlike what I did in college many years later. That also was, interestingly, a Monday night assembly, Tuesday, I think Monday night. I think we did layout Monday night and took the paper to the press, which was the next town over from Collegeville at Ursinus College. And they would do the typeset and layout and all of that. And then they would we'd go in, it was either Tuesday or Wednesday, and do the headlines. Because once it was laid out, then you saw how much space you had for which headlines. And we would write the headlines. They'd typeset those and print them. And then the finished paper came out. And there was one extra trip up there for proofing. I think we did headlines and proofing the body of it that same time. That usually took about an hour.
So how far away was that printing plant from your college?
From the college, probably about 15 to 20 minutes.
Oh, that's not bad.
It wasn't bad at all. It was the next town up the road. And there was a great pizza place next to it, so it was always drop it off and get pizza. So
lunchtime.
Yeah, it was never hard to find somebody who wanted to go up with me because there was pizza in the game. And I was allowed to have a car on campus because it carried the VCR crew. I'm really dating myself now. And of course,
I've heard of those.
Yeah. And the big claim to fame about the Volvo that I drove then was it had this huge, huge trunk, and all of the VCR equipment fit into the trunk.
Sure.
And
now, did you have lighting kits and all that stuff?
Don't remember any lighting. I think it was just available light. But we had 3 cameras.
Oh, wow.
We had 3 cameras and a mixing board, and all of that fit into the car.
Sure. Oh, Volvos had endless room.
Yeah. As somebody put it, a 7-body car.
Yes.
And the thing that I adored about that was because I had the VCR equipment, I was allowed to drive on, not just on campus, but on the green swards.
Uh-oh.
I was allowed to drive on the grass. because I would carry the equipment from the parking lot to the buildings.
Now, you did have help through all this,
Yeah,
right?
there were the other members of the VCR crew,
Okay,
right?
okay.
And there were a couple of boys on it, tall, strapping young men, and they would carry the heavier parts. But we each carried. I and my roommate were both on the crew, and we each carried a camera. So it was a group effort, and because of the large trunk, 4 of us could actually ride in the Volvo and the equipment.
Sure.
So that was the 3 cameras and the guy on the mixer. And we took turns who was on the mixer and who was on which cameras. But it was nice. Yeah, there were 3 cameras, and it was it was fun to learn to use the mixer, as you would know.
Now, did you do like film debates and things like that, or?
We filmed anything the college wanted filmed.
Okay.
So we did all of the all of the football, all of the basketball. I remember those in particular. We videoed speakers. The speech class had actually petitioned, and we would do either 1 or 2 cameras for them. It wasn't a full crew. So there were all kinds of things along the line that also got recorded and went into the bowels and archives of the college. So there might be somebody somewhere lurking in a box in the library that probably is not many books anymore. The building's still there. But
that's got to be interesting with the schools, especially with the really, really impressive libraries, how that's all handled now.
Well, they built the library. They built Widener when I was there. It was the new building. It opened, I think, my senior year, I want to say. And I can remember going into the construction of the building with other students several times.
Was this with the video crew?
Not as much.
Oh, okay.
Those were college days. Yeah. I didn't realize how much I was into media, but I really was, because I was the newspaper editor my senior year.
Wow.
And I might even have been the manager of the radio station. I certainly was one of the DJs. Not that the manager meant a lot. And we had a general who had the license, and I had a secondary license. I had the beginning license, the FCC. And so they had to basically use us because we had the licenses. So
you understand, you had a third ticket, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Your third ticket, in all reality, was more difficult to get than my first ticket. Seriously.
I believe
because, at least in California.
You had to know code.
Morse code.
Did it, dotted it, yeah.
Yep, Morse code.
We used to. Well, that actually worked out well in class because we could tap on the desks and send messages to each other.
Yes.
I am telling schoolgirl.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you could do that real easily. Yeah. And,
I love it.
Yeah, back then you actually needed that even for a ham radio license, though.
Mm-hmm.
You needed code. And now kids go, what's that?
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
Yeah. Well, we code. We understand the web. Different type of coding.
Yeah, that's a different type of coding.
Yep.
Good old Morse and the history of Morse code. It's a fascinating piece. And you want to really look at some interesting old radio, it's the Navajo Code Talkers.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And not only did they speak in Navajo, but they modified Navajo in their group. So it was a code within a language that nobody else could speak. How amazing was that? And that they didn't even share that they had come up with this intricate representative pieces within their language. So.
You need to know. That's it.
Mm-hmm. And it was absolutely held by the code talkers.
I love it.
They
Yeah.
did. They spoke within code within Navajo. They had code words that they had named different kinds of plains and things like that with Navajo words. So even if you would speak Navajo, you wouldn't get the other piece. They were very precious for communication and a great tool for the U.S. I don't know who came up with the idea of Navajo code talkers, but I am so happy that the Navajo did.
And they were heroes.
They were great heroes. They weren't recognized well enough.
Oh, come on.
What else is new?
we all know that.
What else is new?
Yeah.
So there are so many interesting pieces about that. Languages are fascinating. I did when I studied the Seminole tribe of Florida. They speak a couple of different languages. They don't just
didn't know
speak
that.
one. Yeah, they do. They speak Masuki and they speak Mitsisiki, and it sounds similar, but they're very different.
Misuki?
Yeah, Masuki is the larger body of languages, and Mitsisiki is one of the ones inside it.
Isn't that the name of a casino? down
Probably is.
in Miami?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's also the Masuki tribe of Florida,
Oh,
which is
that's-
another.
That may have been what it was.
That's another group that, for political reasons, didn't align itself with the Seminole tribe of Florida. The Seminole tribe of Florida is a blending of different indigenous people that lived in Florida. Seminole is not their ancient name. They're part of them are offshoots from the Creek, and a group of other. There was a number of different waves and migrations and alliances, and it's a fascinating history. And they ended up on a couple of different reservations, but it is the tribe that never surrendered and hid in the Everglades until they drained the swamp and changed the ecosystem of Florida, and then later brought us love bugs and other great things.
Thank you, University of Florida.
University of Florida, the Army Corps of Engineers, a lot of people had their hands in reshaping Florida.
Oh, the changing of our Corps of Engineers just really blew it on that one.
And the way that they destroyed the Kissimmee River.
Well, they're putting it back.
Mm-hmm. Nature, sometimes you have to listen to nature. She has some good ideas. She has reasons for the way she does things.
Yeah.
The other thing that's fascinating along those lines, I'm really going to go left field, is how the reintroduction of wolves into parts of the area to the west of the Mississippi has changed rivers, because it changes the way that animals eat the vegetation. Because wolves are predators, they're pretty high up in the chain. So they're predators, and how they keep the vegetation eaters under control, and the way it changes the behavior of the vegetarian eaters when they realize there's a predator in the area. And it changed the way the river flows.
I know. Going back to maybe the 20s or 30s, where Mr. Wrigley had purchased Catalina Island off of Los Angeles and started importing buffalo to the island. And it has gone famously for maybe 60, 70 years. And now they've decided there's too many buffalo on this little tiny island. Yeah, it's interesting to see how they're going to handle that. So they were apparently flying some from Catalina to Wyoming. It's like in cargo planes. It's like, okay, this has got to be an interesting transition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and how does a buffalo get used to, basically 72 degrees all the time to freezing winters?
You shiver a lot in the beginning. and then
I
you
would think so.
acclimate.
I would think so. Yeah.
It's look at the folks who come to Florida from the north. It takes them a year or two, and then they're Floridian, and it's very different. But you can always tell who's new by how they react to the heat and to air conditioning. And
Our daughter and son-in-law were like that. You know, they had come down here from Spokane, and you know, I said your blood's going to get thinner, and you know you'll be really used to this, and so they go back up to Spokane. It's freezing up here. You know, it was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, well, and look at me. I'm in now. These are very airy long sleeves. Lots of airflow in there, but the ones who are brand new to the South are like, how can you wear that? It's only 80-some degrees.
If it's breathable,
Yeah,
why not? Yeah.
it's very comfortable. Now, would I like to be working out and putting down shingles on a roof in this? No. But I'd also want to be covered if I was putting shingles on a roof because I'd want to protect myself from the sun. So, yeah.
So we got about 6 minutes left. How's the new temple?
We had our first service there Friday. It went well. We had Shabbat dinner. It was nice. It was very nice. And there are some unexpected little gifts that I was telling people about. There are windows all around the space, and we didn't have that where we were on University, but we have it here, so I can actually look outside. Now, to the negative side, I don't have a clock that I can see. I'm going to have to figure out how to give myself a clock so I can pace. Although my internal clock was
you
pretty
can
good.
use this monster on the wall up here.
Yeah, but that's here and not not at 295 Northwest
Prima Vista
Boulevard. You got it, huh? At Irving. Irving. Got to think of the Ballad of Irving.
Irving.
And if you haven't heard the Ballad of Irving, that's well worth listening to. The 142nd fastest gun in the West. It makes it easy to remember where to turn. So you turn left or right on Irving, depending if you're coming from the west or the east. I guess you go north. Right? That's the way to do it. You go north on Irving and then turn left into the parking lot. And we're that front building, the community center. It's a nice space. It's bigger than where we had been. And people seem to enjoy it. So we're going to do our second Shabbat service there this week, and it's going to be an alternative Shabbat. We do alternative Shabbats on second and fourth Fridays.
What is that now?
It's a shortened service, so it's not the long traditional service. It's shortened, and then there is something that we do in the middle of the service that connects to the material for the week and hopefully helps people just get to know themselves better or learn something, or it's an alternative, something different.
There you go.
So lots of different things going on.
Change.
Can't
stop it.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
And we'll continue moving forward. So, yeah, still a ways to go to High Holy Days, the High Holy Day season, September, October. I'll nail down some dates on that for the next week and be able to talk more about that. We've got the summer to get through. Summer starts. IRC just finished Summer A. That was Wednesday, and the next one starts up next week.
Summer B.
Summer B.
Yeah.
And Kaiser is finishing up their Summer B and starting Summer C in another week. So we've got one more week. We're just finishing week 3. They are on a 4-week cycle. So the last week for term B, and then term C starts, oh my gosh, in a week. The merry-go-round, the carousel keeps turning as... okay.
Seems like it never stops for you.
I don't think it stops for anybody. It slows down maybe, but it never stops.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the way life is. You just... The object is not, you're never going to conquer it. You're never going to arrive at your destination because there's always going to be something new happening. And the question is, how do you work to integrate that? How do you work to move forward? I was talking with somebody who was saying, oh, she just wishes she could get everything done so she could just sit down and relax. But as soon as she tries to, she thinks of something else that needs to be done. And that's the way life is. You do have to wash the dishes every day. Maybe you can let it slide one day, but you can't let it slide very long, or you're going to have uninvited guests in the house.
That's my duty, is washing.
Understand. And those things are just ongoing parts of life. There's always something that needs to be done, and you just have to take things in their step and give yourself little breaks along the way, because you're never going to arrive at everything is done and I can relax. That's just never going to happen, which is a lesson to say, take the time to relax, to unwind, to discharge along the way so that you can meet the ongoing challenges with energy and vitality and forward-looking. I guess that's the point of it all. It is a circle. It's a cycle. We don't go a straight line. We do meander in circles, and we'll continue to do that. That's life, and that's the human condition. So if you'd like to join us on a Friday night, services are at 7:30 p.m. at 295 Northwest Prima Vista Boulevard at the corner of Irving in the Community Center of St. Andrew's Lutheran Church. Please look for us there, front building. And have a great week, everybody.
And where do we find you on the web?
At www.eitzchayim.org. And that means Tree of Life, folks. So come join us for life.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Renew your inner Jew. We are the Jewish home on the Treasure Coast. And this has been Rabbi Shafir Loeb for Congregation Eitz Chayim.
You've been listening to Ask a Rabbi right here on WPSL, Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast, webcaster to the world.